After grinding away for 12 brutal years, running my dad's company, I finally pushed its worth to a jaw-dropping $75 million. It was at a loud, lively family dinner when my dad turned to me, flashing a big, satisfied grin, and dropped the bomb. "Your brother's taking over now?" His words slammed into me like a cold punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. But I plastered a smile on my face anyway, hiding the chaos churning inside. The dining room was alive with the sharp clink of glasses and the steady buzz of chatter bouncing between aunts, uncles, and our tight-knit circle of business buddies. This wasn't just some random dinner. It was a full-on party, meant to celebrate everything we'd built, or really, everything I'd busted my ass to create. My dad had started Tran Enterprises way back when I was a nosy kid, a scrappy little logistics outfit that barely kept its head above water in the early days. I grew up hearing the soundtrack of his grind. Late nights poring over numbers, family trips ditched for the sake of the business, always scrambling for that next deal to keep the lights on. I'm Elena. By the time I was 24, armed with a shiny new business degree and a hunger to prove myself, he finally let me get a foot in the door, though I had to fight tooth and nail for even that shot. I didn't just clock in. I took the wheel and turned Tran Enterprises around, dragging it from a shaky regional operation on the verge of tanking into a national heavyweight that turned heads. I stretched its reach into new territory, locked down multi-million-dollar contracts that made people sit up and notice, and brought in top-notch tech that changed the game. What used to be a tiny, almost broke company was now a $75 million beast, a shining star in a dog-eat-dog industry. But right there at that dinner table, in that split second, all my blood, sweat, and tears felt like they didn't mean a damn thing. My dad had already decided my brother Lucas was the one to take the top spot. Not me. A quiet wave of nods and congrats floated across the room toward Lucas, like they were all in on it. I watched him lower his head, faking a humble vibe I knew was total bullshit. He'd never given a damn about the company. For the last 10 years, he'd been hopping from one flop to the next, a drifter who couldn't stick to anything. He didn't care about logistics or the daily grind. He was hooked on the rush of being in charge. For 12 long years, I'd thrown everything I had into showing what I could do, building Tran Enterprises from the dirt up. Every gut-wrenching call, every late-night brainstorm powered by caffeine and grit, every deal I'd muscled through against the big dogs. Lucas! He'd done jack shit. Still, I choked down the mess of feelings boiling inside me. Showing cracks wasn't an option in this family. It was a sign you were weak. My hand brushed my wine glass, shaky for a heartbeat before I got it under control. Then I lifted it with a cool, steady, "To Lucas." Everyone else raised their glasses too, clueless about the storm raging behind my poker face. My mom shot me a quick, hard-to-read look from across the table, her eyes hinting she knew how much I'd put in, but she wouldn't step in. She never did. My dad was all smug confidence, totally blind to the chain reaction he'd just kicked off. Lucas locked eyes with me, a smirk twitching at his mouth. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just Dad's call. Lucas had been biding his time, playing the part of the good son ready to step up. My dad, stuck in his old-school ways, didn't see a problem. A son takes a throne. A daughter's work, no matter how huge, is just a pit stop, a side note in the family story. But what they didn't get was that over those 12 years, I hadn't just grown a business. I dug my roots deep into it. That night, sleep wouldn't come. My brain kept spinning, replaying every trade-off I'd made for Tran Enterprises. Nights that bled into mornings, birthdays I'd let pass by, relationships that fell apart under the pressure of my nonstop hustle. I'd given it all, my time, my energy, my soul, and now they thought I'd just roll over and hand it off. They'd screwed up, misjudged the fire I'd built inside. By 3 a.m., I was camped out in my home office, the computer screen lighting up the dark as my hands raced over the keyboard. Every contract, every stock share, every executive deal. I knew this company better than anyone alive. Lucas figured he'd slide into an easy takeover, his name on the big office door by the weekend. What he didn't see coming was that I'd been stacking the deck for years, locking down something way bigger than a title. Pure, unbreakable control. At 8:45 a.m., I walked into Tran Enterprises headquarters. The usual scene hit me. The slick walls, the glossy marble floors, the hum of people kicking off their day. But today felt heavier. I wasn't just showing up to work. I was stepping into a fight, the vibe thick with something brewing. The front desk area was dead quiet, the kind of hush that screams trouble's coming as staff threw nervous looks my way. Word of Dad's dinner bombshell was already spreading like crazy. I kept moving, chin up, heels snapping against the floor, every step screaming confidence. You don't let them see you sweat. In my office, I had 15 minutes before my dad and Lucas showed up, cocksure they'd walk in as CEO and the next in line. I dropped into my chair, took a deep breath, and fired up my computer. The screen lit up with my secret weapons, ownership papers, the executive shareholders agreement, my whole game plan laid out. I set it all up and waited. Right at 9 a.m., a hard knock cut through the silence. I didn't say a word. The door flew open, and in came my dad and Lucas, oozing confidence. His natural, Lucas's all practiced. Dad strolled in like he owned the place. Well, like he used to. While Lucas, rocking a sharp navy suit that cost a fortune, hit me with a smug, winning grin that made my skin crawl. "Elena," Dad started, his voice deep and bossy, like he was doing me a favor by talking. "I assume you know about the switch going down today?" "Yeah, I know," I said, smooth as hell, leaning back in my chair like I wasn't fazed. "Good," he kept going, nodding like we were all on the same page. "Lucas is stepping up as CEO. We need you to walk him through it, get him up to speed before you're out." "Out?" I echoed, tilting my head just enough to mess with him. His face twitched, irritation creeping in. He wasn't used to me pushing back. "Elena," he said, his tone getting sharp like he was scolding a kid, "this isn't up for grabs. It's done." I let a slow, knowing grin spread across my face, calm but loaded. "Oh, I get it, Dad," I said real soft. "Thing is, you don't have the juice to make it stick." Lucas snorted, shaking his head like I was nuts. "Elena, don't turn this into a mess," he said, his voice all high and mighty. "We're trying to keep it chill." I didn't even blink at him. Instead, I grabbed the remote off my desk and hit a button. The big screen on my wall popped on, showing the executive shareholders agreement in black and white, signed August 17th, 2015, from way back when we restructured. "You even know what this is?" I asked Lucas, staring him down. He squirmed a little, thrown off. Shareholders agreement?" he tossed out, sounding less sure. "Yup," I said, tapping the screen to light up the key part, my voice rock steady. "And this bit says any big move, like picking a new CEO, needs a thumbs up from all the majority shareholders." I swung my eyes to Dad, not budging an inch. "And I've got 60% of the shares, Dad." The room went dead, the air so thick you could choke on it. Dad's face went pale, a rare slip. Lucas mumbled, "No way," like he couldn't believe it. "Oh, it's real," I said coolly, leaning in a bit to twist the knife. See, while you were out there crashing every half-assed startup you touched, Lucas, and Dad was busy playing big shot CEO for the spotlight, I was doing my thing, locking down my spot. I kept going, sharp and on point. Refresh your memory, Dad. 2017, when you were begging for cash to grow, you handed me 15% of your shares for my money. That's what kept us going. Then 2019, that ugly lawsuit? Another 10% came my way as backup, and you never bothered to take it back after we won. Add that to my original 35%, and I'm sitting on 60% of Tran Enterprises. Lucas snatched up a legal filing I'd put out, a fresh one with the state, and scanned it like a maniac, his face going white as he saw the proof. You can't pull this, he sputtered, his voice cracking. Dad, tell her she can't. Dad didn't move, jaw locked, not saying a word, because he knew I'd boxed him in, fair and square. I let out a slow breath, staring Lucas down with ice in my eyes. I'm not canning you, Lucas, I said, all calm and collected. Wouldn't want you floundering out there in the real world, but you're working for me now, under my rules. Don't like it? I flicked my hand toward the door. There's the exit. Lucas spun to Dad, eyes begging for a save, like a kid lost without a lifeline. But this time, Dad had nothing, no fix, no comeback, because this wasn't his show anymore. It was mine, all the way. Lucas bolted, the legal papers still crushed in his shaky fists, his steps stomping out a pissed-off rhythm down the hall. Dad hung back, stiff as a board, his brain clearly scrambling for a way out of the corner I'd pinned him in. There wasn't one. You're screwing up big, Elena, he said finally, his voice level but tight with something heavy. Family's supposed to stick together. You really want to torch this bridge? I looked him dead in the eye, not flinching. Dad, I said, slow and clear, every word heavy. You torched it when you made this call behind my back. His mouth went tight, and he tried to pivot, tossing out a lifeline. Business isn't about one person, he said. We can figure out something that works for all of us. I cocked my head, acting like I was thinking it over for a sec. Sure, I'm with you, I said, glancing at where Lucas had been. That's why I'm giving you both options. Lucas can stay, advisor gig, nice paycheck, but he's under me. Or he can bounce, and I'll buy his shares at market price. He can take the cash and go flop somewhere else. Dad let out a bitter huff, his voice sharp. You're acting like you run the whole damn show. I gave him a small, sure smile. I do. The silence that hit was thick, suffocating, and I let it sit. Let them feel how it stings to have no moves left. Finally, Dad let out a rough breath, shaking his head like he couldn't wrap his mind around it. Never thought you'd pull this, he muttered, barely loud enough to hear. Not on your own family? That hit hard, slicing into old scars. Not on your own family. I wanted to throw it back, scream that he'd been the one to break us, treating me like I was just filling in till Lucas was ready. But I kept it locked down, because yelling wouldn't fix shit. What counted was, right now, I wasn't letting them rip away what I'd made. Not today, not ever. Lucas was already gone, and I knew his next play. He'd run to our relatives, our family crew, whining about how I'd stabbed him in the back with some corporate coup. I didn't give a damn. I wasn't here for their pats on the back. I was here to nail down my future, to hold what I'd earned. Dad stuck around a little longer, like he was hoping I'd cave, give him a way to keep his old dream alive. When I didn't, he gave a slow nod, something heavy in it. Maybe giving up, maybe a shred of respect he didn't want to admit. You're different now, he said low, his voice hard to read. I held a stare, solid as a rock. Nah, Dad, I shot back, steady and sure. I just quit pretending I'm something I'm not." Then he turned and walked out, the door shutting soft but final behind him. I let out a long breath, slumping back in my chair as the weight of it all hit me. I should have been pumped. I'd fought like hell for my spot and won. But staring at that empty doorway, a dull ache settled in my chest. A dumb, stubborn piece of me had always wanted Dad's approval, holding on to some kid's dream that if I worked hard enough, showed him over and over, he'd finally get it. Truth was, he'd never really seen me, not past his own bullshit. Now, he had no choice but to see me, not his little girl, not a temp, but the real boss of Tran Enterprises. The battle wasn't done, far from it. Dad and Lucas didn't just slink off. They hit up their old playbook, working the back channels, calling up family friends with pull, board members who could flip, execs who'd been in Dad's corner forever. They spread doubt, made me out to be a cold-blooded snake, disloyal to the family name. Lucas leaned into the poor me act hard. I could picture him at some swanky bar, drink in hand, fake tears in his voice, feeding our investors sob stories about how I'd swiped his birthright. Dad went quieter, sneakier. He didn't need much. Just a tired sigh, a slow head shake, and a line like, "I just wanted what's best for my kids," dripping with guilt trip vibes. It was smart, and it was risky. If they could turn my board, get my top people on their side, they might boot me out of my own company, or at least make it impossible to lead. No way I was letting that fly. That afternoon, I called an emergency executive meeting, my mind set like concrete. Walking into the boardroom, the tension was thick. Half the room wouldn't look at me, eyes on the floor or walls, the other half staring too hard, waiting for me to trip. I took my seat at the head, my damn seat, and jumped right in. "No bullshit," I said, voice flat but firm. "I know there's been talk behind my back, over drinks, in quiet corners. I know some of you are wondering if I've got what it takes to keep this going." I scanned the room, hitting each one with a look that made them squirm, daring them to challenge me. "Let's kill that noise now." I threw up a slide on the screen, straight up numbers, hard facts, no arguing with it. I dragged this company from a broke-ass regional gig to a $75 million game changer. 5 years with me calling shots, we've tripled revenue and cracked 6 new markets, each one raking it in. I turned to Paul, the CFO, pinning him down. "Paul, any red flags saying I'm tanking this place?" He froze for a second, then shook his head. "Nope," he said. "We're looking at 20% growth next quarter." I nodded, letting it land. "So let's get real about what's up." I pushed on, leaning in, voice steady but sharp. "Dad and Lucas aren't pissed because the company's dying. They're not pissed because I suck at this. They're pissed because they thought I'd step off and let Lucas take it, no matter he's got no creds, no track record next to mine." The room went quiet, tense as hell. Then I dropped the big one. "And I know some of you got calls in the last day, offers, maybe threats, to get me out. Want to fess up? Now's the time." A couple shifted, uneasy as hell. After a long beat, one senior guy coughed, voice low. "Got a call?" he said, eyes down. "Your dad. Said he might push the board." I nodded, not shocked. "He sweetened the deal?" I asked. A pause, then a slow nod. "There it is," I said, standing tall, owning the room. "Dad started this place. Props to him. But I made it what it is, and I'm not letting him yank it from the sidelines." My voice went low, dangerous. "He wants a fight? He's got one." I grabbed my stuff, locked eyes with every one of them. "Think Dad and Lucas should run this? Step up now." Nobody budged. "Good," I said, and walked out, head high, steps loud and sure. That night, I didn't blast out a statement or call a press circus. I made one move, a low-key call to an old journalism buddy who knew how to cut deep. "Got something for you," I said, voice steady. "Move quick." An hour later, I sent him a goldmine. Emails, money trails, old memos. Proof Tran Enterprises under Dad had played dirty. Buried debts, shady moves I'd cleaned up over 10 years. The story hit in 24 hours, screaming across headlines. Behind Tran Enterprises, hidden debts and cover-ups exposed. It sang my praises for fixing the mess, trashed Dad's old screw-ups, and made it crystal clear. I was why this company was still standing. The story flipped everything. The board stopped waffling, investors lined up behind me, and Dad? He was left out in the cold, nowhere to run. 2 days later, Dad called. I let it ring 3 times, just because, then picked up. "Elena," he said, voice tight, "we gotta talk." I leaned back, letting the quiet stretch. "Do we?" I shot back. He sighed, heavy. "You didn't need to do that." I laughed, short and dry. "You didn't either." His voice dropped, almost begging. "This was supposed to be a family legacy, for both of you." That stung a little. I'd bought that line once, wanted it bad. Not anymore. "Dad," I said, low and firm, "if you wanted me to keep it safe, you should have trusted me with it, not tried to yank it away." Silence hung there, heavy. "What now?" he asked, like he didn't want to hear it. I breathed out slow. "Now," I said, "I've made sure you and Lucas can't touch my company again." The fight was over. Dad retired on the spot, dumped most of his shares, kept a tiny piece as a sidelines watcher. Lucas grabbed the buyout and bailed, like I knew he would. He never had the guts to stand and fight, just ran when it got tough. I'd won, clean and total, but it didn't feel like a party. I'd locked down my company, but I'd lost my family. The thin ties we had were cut for good. A month later, I started reshaping Tran Enterprises my way. Old board guys tied to Dad? Gone. Execs who doubted me? Outside, it had always done well under me, but now it was mine, no question. I rolled out stuff Dad hated. Big risks he'd called crazy, new tech he'd laughed off, moves into markets he'd never touch. 6 months in, profits were through the roof. A year later, we blew past $100 million, proof of what I could do free and clear. A year after it all went down, I met Dad for dinner. First time we'd talked since he walked away. He looked worn, quieter. The fight drained out of him. He sipped his drink, eyeing me over the glass. "Heard about that deal you landed," he said, casual-like. "Smart as hell." I smirked, a little proud. "Yeah, I know." A faint smile hit his lips, quick and real, a peek at the old him. No bad blood lingered, no fight left, just the hard truth. He'd tried to shove me aside, and I'd proved him dead wrong. He raised his glass. "To Tran Enterprises," he said, simple and straight. This time, clinking my glass to his, I didn't feel mad or bitter. Just peace, earned the hard way. I'd won, and I didn't need his okay to know it. I'd owned that truth ages ago. Now, sitting in my office high above the city, looking out at the skyline of the empire I built from scratch, I think about what this mess taught me. Family can turn into your worst enemy, hitting when you're down. Loyalty's not automatic, it's a deal you make. Power? You don't get it handed to you, you take it, clawing past whoever's in the way. And sometimes, the best way to show what you're worth isn't begging for a nod. It's building something so big, so solid, they can't ignore you. No regrets here. Tran Enterprises is mine. It's history, it's now, it's tomorrow. And I'm gonna make damn sure nobody forgets what I turned it into.